Welcome to Across Africa, our weekly look at stories from across the continent. I'm Georgia Calvin-Smith, and this week, the highlight of a summit for Commonwealth nations was the admission of Gabon and Togo. The Francophone countries hope that membership of the bloc, headed by Britain's monarch, will lead to more profitable connections with the English-speaking world. Also, striking nurses in Zimbabwe hold out for a better deal from the government and say that they'll stay away unless they're offered a pay rise that substantially offsets the crisis caused by the country's tanking currency and soaring inflation. And as Africa tries to keep development on track whilst accelerating green energy across the continent, grassroots projects play an important role alongside the bigger policy choices. In Kenya, One Refugee's local solar grids offered a lifeline to hundreds of businesses. But first, despite being Francophone countries with no historic ties to the UK, Togo and Gabon have become the latest members of the Commonwealth. The bloc was originally made up of former British colonies. Gabon's hoping that diversifying its diplomatic and cultural ties with more English-speaking nations could give it a developmental boost. Our correspondents report.
They're talking to a guard.
Kathleen is teaching English to employees from the private and public sectors. English language proficiency has become a highly sought-after skill in Gabon ever since it set its sights on joining the Commonwealth.
There are more and more English-speaking businesses in Gabon, so there is more pressure to speak English, and most of the job interviews are in English now.
For students like Pavik, the vocabulary can be difficult to master. English is still sparsely spoken here, and it's often difficult to find people to practice conversation with.
The only downside is that we don't have the opportunity to continue to practice or maintain what we've learnt, because when we go home, we don't have the chance to speak with our brothers and sisters in English.
Gabon is banking on Commonwealth membership to bring economic benefits.
I think that this membership will be a blessing, especially at an economic level, but also for job opportunities for young people who have been badly hit. So this membership is long awaited, and it will help the glaring unemployment that Gabon is currently experiencing.
There are limits to the impact that joining the Commonwealth can have on Gabon's development. Some civil society organizations think that the state should rather stay focused on improving governance. Mark Ona is an environmental activist who wants tackling corruption to be more of a priority.
Today we can join any organization, but if internal governance is not on the agenda, if human rights are not respected, if the rules don't change at this level, we'll have joined 10,000 organizations and it won't change anything for Gabon.
Gabon is ranked 124th globally for corruption, up 5 places from the previous year. Authorities hope membership in the Commonwealth could boost its fight against corruption through the sharing of best practice, research and training between member states.
The British government's controversial plans to deport undocumented migrants that arrive on its shores to Rwanda have sparked widespread criticism. In Rwanda itself, there are already hundreds of asylum seekers waiting for their requests to be processed. Some have been there for years. Wassine Cornet tells us more.
For the asylum seekers who end up at the Gashora camp in southwestern Rwanda, it is all about patience. More than 1,000 people have come through here since 2019, when Rwanda agreed to offer shelter to refugees stuck in Libya. Residents live in small units. There's a cafeteria and a center where people can learn skills such as weaving and hairdressing. For many, it's a welcome reprieve after experiencing truly awful moments.
When I was in Libya, I tried to cross the sea 4 times, and I failed. And even I see the deaths of people, I'm seeing people have dying of my eye.
But the people here are all waiting for governments and administrations around the world to process their asylum requests. Some have been waiting for years, making the Gashora camp increasingly feel like an open-air prison. So much so that Ismail Benaga says he might just return to Libya to try to make his way across the Mediterranean once again.
I submitted my case to go to Canada, but since December, authorities keep giving me different reasons for why my case has been delayed and still not approved. I see other asylum seekers here have already left Gashora, but I don't know the reason why I'm still here.
The UNHCR says they have not had a single request to stay in Rwanda permanently. So far, more than 600 asylum seekers have been resettled in Canada, Finland, France, and Sweden.
Healthcare workers in Zimbabwe headed out on strike at the end of June, demanding a tenfold increase of their wages. Unions had earlier rejected an offer from the government to double salaries. They say that doesn't go far enough as they deal with the squeeze caused by their plummeting currency and soaring inflation. But the disruptions put lives at risk.
Patients visiting Zimbabwe's public hospitals were turned away every day last week after healthcare officials went on strike for 5 days. The government is offering them a 100% wage increase, but that won't even cover inflation that shot up to more than 130% in the country in May this year. Some of the workers are earning around €50 a month, and they're demanding a tenfold increase.
We've been trying to engage our employer. It's been 14 months now. We as an association have also written letters to the permanent secretary. There's been a lot of red tape that we haven't met to discuss all these issues.
They say the hospitals where they work often lack basic medicine like paracetamol and equipment like MRI scanners. They also want their wages to be paid out in US dollars.
The government is offering $175 being paid in US dollars. So that part already, we've already shown that we are willing to make sure that part of the salary is in US dollars.
The opposition party, the Citizens Coalition for Change, says dysfunctional hospitals are the result of a complete failure of the government to implement health policies that work.
Corruption, a failure to prioritize funding of health, a failure to have experts lead the process, have public health professionals at the forefront of the health ministry. All of those things together, have contributed to this crisis.
Union leaders have warned that health workers would have no option but to strike again if the government doesn't come up with an offer closer to the €500 they demand within the next 2 weeks.
Gabon's had to race to contain an outbreak of bird flu that's killed tens of thousands of birds. It's the first time the country's faced the threat. Authorities have had to move fast to try and clamp down on the spread of the disease as the key poultry sector is already struggling to recover from the shock of the pandemic. Our correspondents report.
There are about 4,000 laying hens at this poultry farm outside of Libreville. Staff keep a close 24-hour watch on the birds. In the midst of a deadly outbreak, they are constantly looking for signs of infection. Farmers are still struggling to recover from the impact of the pandemic and the rocketing price of feed. This deadly flu is the latest threat to the industry.
The epidemic needs to be eradicated. And not only that, but the price of food has tripled in the last 2 months. We're not living, we're surviving. We're digging into our stocks. We haven't felt it yet, but in 2 months' time, we'll see the results. Many will shut down, definitely.
Poultry sales at this market have fallen since authorities raised the alarm about the outbreak. The drop in demand has hit sellers so hard.
Before the crisis, our daily income was estimated at 40,000 CFA francs. But after the measure, income has dropped, so it's estimated at about 10,000 a day, sometimes even 5,000. It's a complicated situation.
Local authorities are trying to contain any identified outbreaks as soon as possible. They've brought in a ban on moving poultry in and out of the capital. A committee at the Ministry of Livestock is reacting to the crisis in real time. They've tightened up monitoring of the poultry breeding sector.
When poultry is sold at the market, these farmers should present a veterinary health certificate. The livestock authorities ensure that the farm is free of avian flu.
The outbreak has killed 17,000 chickens on 4 farms, located about 50 kilometers from Libreville. Gabon has banned the import of all poultry until further notice.
Africa faces a tough balancing act as it tries to build more sustainable energy systems. The issue sits at the intersection of crucial questions to do with development, climate change and climate justice. As well as the big policy decisions, community projects are also important to accelerating green energy across the continent. In Kenya, one Congolese refugee spent years building a local solar grid that's now powering at least 200 businesses. Shirley Sitman with more.
Vasco Hamisi first arrived in the Kakuma refugee camp 12 years ago. In a way, his experience then made him the businessman he is today, running a small green energy company.
I decided to go in green energy first. When I came here, we are really struggling to get light.
Getting light may seem like a minor problem compared with fleeing war and fighting for survival, traumas refugees living here have faced, but without electricity, they would struggle to learn and work. Vasco Hamisi's company, Okapi Green Energy, provides power to 200 businesses.
With reliable electricity supply, I have now brought a refrigerator. I sell cold drinks and water. I also make fresh mango juice, which I sell. We are very grateful because this power really helps us.
It's a life changer. But Okapi Green Energy has a small grid and cannot bring power to everyone just yet.
We are still having more potential people who are still coming to ask for connection. But for the power that we have, the 20 kilowatts that we have, we cannot connect everyone in Kakuma.
The company, though, provides energy outside the camp, hoping to build bridges with the local population, which also lives in poverty with little access to energy.
Well, that's it for Across Africa for now. Thanks for joining us. Do so again if you can. Till then, take care.